The broadcast was supposed to be controlled, scripted, predictable, but the second Jasmine Crockett stepped onto the soundstage, something shifted. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't waving. She wasn't playing to the crowd. Her expression was carved in steel, her steps deliberate, as if she were walking not onto a television debate stage, but into a courtroom where she had already written the closing argument. No one in the building realized it yet. But the trial was about to begin, and Donald J. Trump. He was about to take the stand, whether he wanted to or not. If you believe truth, just one. Drop your country and city in the comments. Let the world see where justice is rising. It started with static, an eerie flicker in the broadcast feed. Then came the silence, a rare, suffocating hush across the studio. Normally, Trump would command the spotlight from the moment he walked in, chest puffed, tie too long, grin locked in place like a weapon. But tonight was different, because tonight the lights weren't shining for him. They were aimed at him, and somewhere beneath the gold-plated ego and endless rehearsed one-liners. Even he seemed to sense it. The crowd was restless. Cameras tracked every flinch. Hashtags were already climbing. Hashtag Crockett vs. Trump. Hashtag the Barron leak. Hash live and unscripted. Behind the scenes, producers whispered into earpieces. Something's off with her energy, one muttered. She's not here to debate. She's here to detonate. Another warned, we might need a delay switch. If she goes rogue, this could blow up everything. Crockett didn't wait for the moderator to open. She turned to Trump directly. You've been handed microphones your entire life, she said, her voice low and deliberate. And every time you pick one up, it's to lie, to distract, or to destroy. But tonight, I want you to know something. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to expose. Trump laughed too loudly, too forced. The audience barely moved. Crockett continued, eyes locked on him like a laser sight. And if you're uncomfortable, now, you should be. Because by the time I'm finished, you won't be able to look your own family in the eye. The tension cracked like a thunderclap. For the first time in years, Trump's smirk slipped just slightly, and the internet caught it in 0.2 seconds. A gif of his expression was already circulating on Twitter when you realize the cameras can't save you. Trump tried to regain control. Oh, please, he spat, waving her off like a nuisance. You come in here with drama and fairy tales. This is why nobody takes your party seriously. You're emotional. You're unstable. You're truthful, Crockett interrupted, her voice slicing through the noise. That's the word you're looking for. And you're not afraid of lies. You're afraid of facts that finally stick. The moderator scrambled to rein things in, but it was too late. Crockett reached down and slid a thick manila folder onto her podium. Let's talk about your empire, she said. The one you claim you built with grit and genius? The one that somehow had a mysterious $3.1 million donation funneled through a Delaware-based foundation into a youth tech fund registered under your son's name, Barron's name. The air left the room like a collective gasp. Trump blinked. Once, twice. Don't you dare, he growled. Don't you dare bring my son into this. You already did, Crockett replied. You used him. Across social media, timelines exploded. TikTokers stitched live reactions midstream. YouTubers began frame-by-frame rewinds. Even conservative influencers froze, uncertain if this was scripted, legal, or spiraling into something far darker. What made it so devastating wasn't just the allegation. It was the precision. Crockett named the shell company. She named the donor a foreign hedge fund with ties to a cryptocurrency laundering scheme flagged in 2022. She read verbatim from an IRS memo, marked confidential one that had mysteriously vanished from the public docket just before the 2024 election cycle. She referenced metadata from public records, highlighting identical IP addresses used to sign two different financial filings. You knew it would never trace back to you directly, she said, because it would trace to your son. A teenager, a child, and you thought hiding behind him made you untouchable. The audience was frozen. Even the lights seemed dimmer. Trump turned red, then pale. You're disgusting, he hissed. This is a smear. This is criminal. You'll be sued into oblivion. You're welcome to try, she shot back. Because everything I just stated is in the public record. Unless, of course, you had it sealed. Trump fumbled with his papers. The moderator tried to pivot. Let's move on to... No, Crockett said firmly, facing the audience now. America deserves this moment, because for years we've watched this man manipulate the law, bend the system, and weaponize his family's image to dodge accountability. And we let him, because we were afraid of how deep it went. She paused, but I'm not afraid. Not anymore. The silence was volcanic. You could feel it bubbling, hissing under the surface. And when the tension finally shattered, it wasn't. With a scream, but with the unmistakable sound of gasps. First one, then a dozen, then the entire audience. A single voice from the crowd whispered, "Is this real?" Crockett nodded. "Oh, it's real." The news charoon scrambled to adjust. Twitter had entered full meltdown mode. And just as the moderator tried to steer the broadcast back toward scheduled talking points, Crockett added one final sentence. Quiet, almost haunting. And if you think this is the worst of it, you haven't seen what's next. And in that single breath, the room didn't just shift, it imploded. He clapped, once loud enough to echo off the studio walls. Then again sarcastic, mocking, deliberate. "Bravo," Trump said slowly. Stepping forward, the smirk returning to his lips like poison bubbling to the surface. "That was quite a monologue, Jasmine. You rehearsed that in front of a mirror? Maybe with a couple of your friends in a safe space? Huh? Let's all clap for the angry woman with a conspiracy theory and a martyr complex." A few forced chuckles. From his section of the crowd, it's the kind of laughter that smelled more like fear than amusement. But Crockett didn't smile. She didn't blink. Trump tilted his head, mocking curiosity. "You drag my son's name into this and expect sympathy." His voice sharpened. No, you expect applause. You think you're brave for making the lowest, most desperate attack I've seen in all my years in politics? And trust me, sweetheart, I've seen it all. He paced now, taking control of the stage like he used to at rallies. "You came here tonight thinking you had a nuke. All you brought was a firecracker, soaked in sputtering. This little theory of yours? It won't stick. Because here's what people actually care about. Jobs, gas prices, immigration, keeping America great, not your little dramatic courtroom performance." He spun on his heel and pointed. "This woman has never run anything in her life. She's never signed a paycheck, never opened a factory, never had to build. She reads blogs, she screams on TikTok, and suddenly she thinks she's a prosecutor. Folks, this is what the left gives you now. Twitter lawyers and media moments. No evidence, just ego." The camera panned to Crockett. But she remained perfectly still. Not cowed, not rattled. Just waiting. "And one more thing," Trump added, raising his voice and gesturing toward the audience. "Let's talk about this disgusting insinuation about Barron. My son, a child. You cross a line when you involve a man's family, especially a child who's never spoken a word in politics, never answered a press question. You don't just smear me, you weaponize a kid. And for what? Headlines." They turned to the crowd again. "Is this what we want in our leaders?" There was a beat of silence. And then Crockett moved. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't yell. She simply stepped forward, her heels sharp against the floor, and picked up a single sheet of paper from the folder in front of her. "You know," she began, "it's fascinating how quickly you flip the script when you're caught. Suddenly, you're the victim. Suddenly, I'm attacking a child. But let me be perfectly clear. I didn't accuse your son of anything. I accused you of hiding behind him, of laundering money through his name. And the only reason you're screaming now is because I was right." Trump tried to interject. "Fake news. Let me finish," she snapped. And for the first time, Trump stopped talking. She held up the document. "This is a copy of the grant paperwork. The same paperwork filed by the American Future Youth Innovation Fund. That lists Barron Trump as honorary chairman. And right here," she pointed, "is the signature line. Not his. Yours." Gasps. Real ones this time. Crowd leaned in as Crockett's voice dropped to a surgical whisper. "We signed. As executive guardian, you approved all disbursements. And 2 weeks later, $3.1 million disappeared into a company in the Cayman Islands, a company registered under one of your campaign donors' holding firms. She turned the page. Want to guess what the Cayman firm's business was? Listed as a crypto security exchange for teens. Trump's face twitched. The camera caught it. Live stream chat. He twitched. Rewind that. Is he sweating? You think I'm reading blogs? Crockett continued. This came from a sealed subpoena. Unsealed 2 weeks ago. You think I'm just chasing clout? This is my job. Investigate, expose, protect the people you keep exploiting. Trump took a step forward, voice rising. You're lying. That document is fake. That's a forgery. Crockett didn't move. Then prove it. Go ahead. Call your legal team. Let's get handwriting experts. Let's subpoena Barron's digital startup. Let's talk about why that foundation's tax ID traces to the same address as your 2020 super PAC. Boom. Twitter exploded. TikTok live duets played the clip on loop. She went there. No turning back now. Barron's name was the shield. Trump's signature was the blade. Trump tried to retake the mic. This is a setup. It's leftist lawfare. You people are sick. No, Crockett said calmly. What's sick is using a child to hide millions in shady political donations. Then crying foul when someone pulls the curtain back. And that's when the crowd shifted. It wasn't sudden. It was slow. Like a storm cloud inching overhead. People stood up, not just on Crockett's side. From the middle rows. From the corners. From the sections where people had sat frozen. In disbelief, a woman in the third row mouthed, "He used Barron?" Another pulled out her phone, live streaming now with the caption, "Trump just sank his own ship." Crockett leaned forward. Her voice was almost kind now, but steely. You talk about building? About factories and jobs? Let me ask, what did Barron build? What did that foundation build? Because it wasn't youth empowerment, it was cover. A ghost organization with a single purpose. Move money where no one would dare to look. Trump shook his head. I won't sit here and listen to this garbage. No, she said. You'll stand here, and you'll answer it. He turned to the moderator. This debate is a disgrace. I demand she retract. It all, or I walk. The moderator looked stunned. Mr. Trump, she doesn't get to slander my son and call it politics. Crockett cut in coldly. And you don't get to commit financial crimes and call it parenting. The studio froze again. Like the moment before a building collapses, and then the audience stood. They didn't cheer. Not yet. They just stood. And that silence was louder than any applause Trump had ever received in his life. He looked around. Suddenly aware he was no longer holding court, he was being judged. And just then, a teenage voice called from the crowd, Why did you drag your own kid into this, man? Trump spun toward the direction of the voice. But it was too late because the dam had burst. Comments flooded in. Trump just lost control. Crockett's not playing. She's prosecuting. This isn't a debate. It's a reckoning. And as the moderator attempted to salvage control of the room, Crockett whispered one final line into her mic. You built a wall, Mr. Trump. But tonight, your lies built a trap, and you just walked into it. Trump's jaw was tight now. The calm veneer had shattered into a smirk carved by rage. He leaned forward toward the mic like a predator that had tasted blood and wasn't done hunting. You know, he said, voice curling with condescension. It's cute how you pretend to understand the law, Congresswoman. I've built empires. You've read tweets. A few in the back chuckled. Staffers, maybe loyalists, but even they seemed unsure. It's the only thing you've ever built, Trump sneered. It's a fan base of woke keyboard warriors too busy screaming to think straight. Jasmine didn't flinch. It irritated him more. Trump's tone turned darker. Let's get real. You've got your talking points, your righteous anger, your TV clips. But when it comes to real leadership, to real decisions, to running anything, beyond a Twitter feed, you're out of your depth. You talk like a revolutionary, but you serve like a diva. The room stiffened. Trump knew exactly what he was doing, weaponizing tone, race, gender, all cloaked in smug political critique. And then came the first real knife. You talk about families, Crockett, he said with a mocking sniff. What do you know about keeping a family out of trouble? Maybe worry about your own history before lecturing mine. Heard your cousin got arrested for fraud. It's funny how you leave that out when you play America's conscience. That hit like a sucker punch. Gasps echoed, even from neutral press. Jasmine's eyes flickered just for a second. Trump leaned in, pleased. See, he whispered cruelly. You're not clean. None of you are. But Jasmine didn't break. She breathed in and smiled. Donald, she said, her voice low and lethal, you've built your entire identity on the illusion of control. But that illusion is cracking. You're the only one who can't hear the sound. Trump narrowed his eyes. You want to talk about family? She continued. Let's. I didn't exploit mine. I didn't slap my name on theirs and shove them into cameras to hide my corruption. You brought your son onto the chessboard? Not me. And when the world sees the pieces you've sacrificed to save your ego, don't blame the mirror for showing what you are. There was silence, stunned and thick, before murmurs rippled across the audience like a wave of dropped pins. And as for my cousin, she said, tilting her head, yeah, he made mistakes. And we held him accountable. It's called integrity. It's a foreign concept in your orbit. Trump blinked, double quotes. See, that's the difference between us. I acknowledge hard truths. You bury yours behind lawyers and NDAs. I've lived accountability, bought silence. It landed like a slap. A Fox News host tried to cut in Congresswoman. This isn't about, but Jasmine raised her hand without looking away from Trump. No, let him escalate, she said. Let the country watch what happens when a man with everything to hide dares someone with nothing to lose. Trump tried to retake control. This isn't about me, Jasmine. This is about a country that's tired of your woke rants, your race baiting, your endless victim complex. Victim. Jasmine cut in. You think I'm the victim here? I'm the storm you didn't see coming, Donald? You should have picked a fight you could actually win. But instead, you dragged your own son into this mess. The mention of Barron's name again caused a ripple of nervous tension. One of Trump's aides visibly flinched off stage. I never brought up your family in malice, she continued. But now that you've tried to smear mine, let's unpack yours. You're the one who put Barron on that donor list. You're the one who had him attending meetings with men now under federal indictment. I didn't create that connection. You did. Trump looked shaken for the first time. You really want to go there? He growled. Jasmine didn't blink. We're already there, and unlike you, I came with facts. She reached down, picked up a printed document, and slowly held it toward the camera. This, she said, is an internal Mar-a-Lago visitor log. It shows your son attending strategy sessions alongside major donors, while the January 6th riot was being coordinated. The room collapsed into chaos. Gasps, phones, shouting. Trump stood up, fists clenched. This is a damn lie. No, Jasmine said calmly. What's a lie is the America you keep trying to sell one where you're always the hero? Even while innocent people pay the price for your cowardice? Whispers became gasps. One reporter mouthed, "Oh my God." This isn't about party, Jasmine added. It's about a pattern. Every time someone challenges you, you reach for character assassination. Every time someone gets close to your truth, you hide behind your children. You think that makes you clever, but all it makes you is a coward. Trump's voice cracked. You're finished. Jasmine took a single step forward. No, Donald, you are. Air couldn't thicken anymore. Trump reached into his suit pocket and slammed a folder onto the table with trembling hands. He flipped it open. Then let's open the floodgates, he hissed. Let's show them everything. Everyone froze. Jasmine's eyes narrowed, reading the unspoken challenge in his face. She knew exactly what he was about to unleash. But she didn't flinch. Not this time, because what Trump didn't know was that she had already seen what was inside that folder. And that would be the moment that would haunt him forever. But the next move from Trump would be his biggest mistake yet. For a long moment, no one moved. Trump stood behind the podium like a statue ready to explode. knuckles white on the folder he had just slammed down. The crowd murmured, confused. Even the anchors were frozen, caught in a silent standoff that felt like the moment before a courtroom verdict, the moment when oxygen becomes scarce and everyone leans forward unconsciously. Then Trump spoke. Slowly, with eerie calm. "You want facts, Crockett?" he asked, voice low. "Let's talk law. Let's talk real-world complexity. Not Twitter outrage, not courtroom dramatics. Let's talk numbers, dates, signatures, the kind of things people like you can't fake with passion or volume." Jasmine narrowed her eyes, not moving. Trump pulled a second document from the folder, a thick sheaf of legal text that looked more like a tax code manual than an argument. "Here," he said, slapping it on the podium. "This is a full legal breakdown of the Foreign Agents Registration Act violations you've been screaming about. You've been accusing my inner circle of breaking laws you don't even understand. So here's a challenge. Live right now." He looked to the moderator. "I want her to explain this statute. Break it down for the audience. Prove she understands it. And then tell us how it applies legally to anything we've done." Jaws dropped. The Fox News moderator hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Congresswoman Crockett, would you care to respond?" Trump stepped back, arms folded smugly. This was the trap Fare, a notoriously dense, convoluted statute rarely enforced and even more rarely understood. Legal experts could debate it for hours and still leave unsure. Most members of Congress couldn't break it down without aides or staff memos. Trump had just tossed her into a minefield of legislative ambiguity in front of a live national audience. And yet, Jasmine didn't flinch. She picked up the document slowly, flipped through the pages, fingers gliding like a surgeon before incision. The room held its breath. Then she looked up. "Donald, you might want to sit down." Laughter rippled lightly, but Trump didn't budge. Jasmine held up the legal text and began to speak, not as a politician, not as a performer, but as a trained legal assassin who had read this statute 100 times before. Trump had even learned to pronounce it. Section 612, Title 22. She began, her voice steady and surgical. "Requires any individual acting as an agent of a foreign principal to disclose their affiliation and activities to the Department of Justice. Failure to do so is a felony." She flipped a page. Section 618, Criminal Penalties. To 5 years imprisonment per violation. It's not theoretical, not symbolic. It's enforced when intent is proven. She walked forward. And intent, Donald, is where your people failed. Because your campaign didn't just forget to file. They redacted contacts, doctored meeting logs, and funneled communications through encrypted back channels to disguise dealings with sanctioned Russian nationals. Gasps. "Here's where your little challenge backfires," Jasmine said, holding up a highlighted paragraph. "This clause, paragraph B, subsection 3, specifies that anyone directing political activity on behalf of a foreign power without disclosure qualifies as an unregistered agent." She paused. "That includes Jared." Dead silence. Even the moderators froze. She turned another page. "Now, let me show you where the trap collapses under its own weight." She took out a flash drive and handed it to the moderator. "Play the clip. It's already been cleared." Screen lit up behind them. Security footage. Blurry, but damning. Jared Kushner entering a private room with a Russian oligarch known to be on a sanctions list, time-stamped, cross-referenced with travel records and financial filings. Jasmine didn't gloat. She didn't need to. I didn't need to memorize. "Farah," she said, voice like steel, "because I've lived inside these statutes, prosecuted under them, defended innocent people against them, and now I'm using them to expose you." Trump's face darkened, confusion flashing behind fury. "This isn't about understanding the law," Jasmine said. "It's about respecting it, something your entire orbit abandoned the moment it became inconvenient." The crowd erupted. Applause, gasps, journalists tweeting mid-clap. One anchor whispered, "She just rewrote the playbook." Trump stepped forward, trying to salvage ground. "That footage doesn't prove intent, except Jasmine interrupted, raising her hand. That Jared sent an email 2 hours later instructing staff to scrub guest records for optics. It's in the judiciary's sealed archive. Would you like me to release that next? The sound Trump made was half laugh, half snarl. Your move, Donald, Jasmine whispered, and then she twisted the knife. But just in case you think this ends with Kushner, I'd like to introduce a name you accidentally left off your clean list. She pulled another document from her binder. A shell corporation connected to 1BT Advisors. LLC used to funnel $250,000 in cryptocurrency too. An unregistered lobbying group working in coordination with foreign nationals. She looked him dead in the eyes. BT stands for Barron Trump. A collective gasp ripped through the audience. One woman screamed. Another clutched her chest. The moderator stared in disbelief. Trump froze. You involved your son in illegal shell transfers, Jasmine said, every word like a nail into the coffin. You think that's strategy? No, that's desperation. And it's going to cost you everything. Trump's lips moved, but no words came. Cameras zoomed in. He looked smaller now, cornered. His earlier bravado had twisted into something frail, something visibly panicked. Jasmine took one final step forward and said clearly, You set a trap, Mr. Trump, and you walked right into it. Applause surged, deafening now. Porters were shouting questions, phones flashing, people standing. The host tried to calm things down, but the moment was too volcanic. Even neutral networks began cutting live, narrating the downfall in real time. And just when everyone thought it was over, Jasmine Crockett dropped a final bombshell. She turned to the moderator. I have one more document. From a federal grand jury unsealed just minutes ago. Would you like me to read the name on it? Trump's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The moment Donald Trump tried to shift the narrative. The desperation hit like a cold gust of wind sharp. Sudden and impossible to ignore. His voice, once booming with confidence, now trembled beneath layers of manufactured arrogance. This whole thing is political theater, he snapped, gesturing toward Jasmine Crockett with a forced smirk. She's here to perform, not to speak the truth. And by the way, if she really cared about justice, maybe she'd look into her own parties. He paused. It wasn't part of the script. He looked around. Let's just say dirty secrets. But it was too late. His words didn't hit. They ricocheted and fell limp at his feet. The crowd didn't laugh. There were no gasps, just an eerie collective. Silence broken only by the soft sound of someone in the audience whispering, He's losing it. Trump's usual deflections weren't working. The sweat beneath his collar was beginning to betray him. He turned to the moderator, but even they looked uneasy, shifting papers as if to pretend they weren't watching him crumble in real time. And Jasmine. She didn't even flinch. She slowly leaned forward, clasping her hands as if preparing to deliver a eulogy rather than a rebuttal. Mr. Trump, she said softly. When men like you run out of truth, you start running from the truth. And every time you open your mouth, you leave a trail of broken facts, bruised dignity, and abandoned responsibilities. The moment hit like a lightning strike. She wasn't angry. She was precise, like a scalpel slicing through a rotting narrative. Trump laughed awkwardly. You know what? You're just rehearsing some liberal fairy tale. That's cute. Crockett cut in, this time looking past Trump and into the camera. You think this is cute? Families are being torn apart because of your lies? You manipulated an entire nation, and now you're sitting here trying to act like a victim. You want to talk about broken families? Let's talk about yours. Trump froze, gasps. Barron's name hadn't even been spoken yet, but everyone knew. What she meant? The subtext was a dagger? You've dragged everyone into this, including your own child. Trump attempted to regain control. Now she's bringing my son into this. Shameful. Disgusting. His voice cracked mid-sentence. He's just a kid, leave him out of your political games. But Crockett never attacked the sunshine, exposed the hypocrisy of the father. Exactly, she said, voice low and steady. He's just a kid. But you're the one who put him on the political chessboard, remember? You used him as a shield. You made him collateral. And now that the world sees the consequences of your lies, you want pity? The silence that followed wasn't empty, was thunderous. Eyes widened. Some in the crowd clapped slowly, unsure if they were allowed to, while others just stared. At Trump like they didn't recognize the man in front of them. He stammered, "I never. I've always protected my family." But no one believed it. The weight of everything Crockett's logic, her poise, the facts, the emotional gut punch, had pierced the facade he spent decades building. His hand reached for the water glass, but even that betrayed him. His fingers trembled slightly, water sloshing onto the desk. He tried to pivot again. "You people don't understand what it's like to be me. To have everyone come after you. It's be hunted." Crockett nodded, with the restraint of someone who'd waited years to say what came next. "You're right. Most of us don't know what it's like to have billions in the bank, yet constantly play the victim. We don't know what it's like to commit crimes and walk free while black and brown kids get life for less. You're not hunted, Mr. Trump. You're haunted by your own reflection." Boom. The audience didn't clap. They rose. Slowly. Like watching a tide turn in real time. Trump looked around, scanning for a lifeline, a single ally. But even some of the conservative pundits looked stunned, faces slackened by the gravity of her words. His usual fire had turned to flickering embers. He chuckled nervously. "She rehearsed this. She had writers. You all see what's happening here. It's a setup." Crockett didn't respond with words this time. "Shh." She reached into her binder and pulled out a folder. "These aren't lines, Mr. Trump. These are court documents, and each one bears your signature." The camera zoomed in. Viewers at home watched in high definition as she opened the first page an affidavit, referencing a hush money payment to silence a key witness. Trump jolted up in his seat. That's... But the moderator didn't stop her. The audience didn't flinch. Crockett kept going. Page after page, you ran on law and order. Yet every corner of your empire reeks of obstruction, payoffs, fraud, and fear. And still, you sit there, pretending you're the victim? She looked directly at him, no fear in her voice. "You're not under attack. You're under oath from now on, in the court of public opinion, in the court of law," he muttered. Something incoherent, eyes darting, sweat now clearly visible. He couldn't hide the collapse. His voice no longer thundered. It cracked, and then it happened. Someone in the audience stood and shouted, "Sit down, Donald." Laughter. Real, gut-punching laughter. Trump looked around like a man stranded in a storm he could no longer navigate. The emperor had no clothes and the world had just noticed. Crockett adjusted her mic, delivering the finishing stroke like an artist perfecting her masterpiece. Truth doesn't need volume, it just needs courage. And clearly, you've run out of both. The crowd erupted. This time the applause wasn't hesitant, it was thunderous. Trump tried to speak, but the moderator raised a hand. "Mr. Trump, please, let's allow her to finish." Everyone knew he already had. And still, the final moment of truth was still to come. The silence was unbearable for Trump. He hated it. He'd always been able to twist silence to his advantage, fill it with punchlines, rally cries, or blame. But this time, the silence was different. It wasn't confusion, it was condemnation. It was the world holding its breath. It's waiting to see how low he'd sink to save face. And sink he did. Trump leaned back in his chair like a drowning man clinging to a raft made of ego and deflection. His eyes, bloodshot with stress, scanned the room for anyone who still looked at him with respect. He found no one. So he did what he always did when cornered. He lashed out. "Oh, give me a break," exploded, voice raw with fury. "This whole thing, it's a circus, a setup. This woman, this actress doesn't care about the American people. She cares about screen time. She's rehearsing lines for the cameras while the country burns. And you," he turned toward the moderator, stabbing a finger into the air, "you let her turn this into a courtroom drama? This isn't justice. This is television." There it was, the last desperate rope. Mockery. "You want drama? You got it?" he barked. "You want truth? I am the truth. I'm the only one up here who's actually run a business. The only one who stood on the world stage and made America strong again. And now what? You all want to crucify me because I bruised a few egos, because I made the media cry. Boo-hoo. The words fell like bricks. Heavy, useless, loud, but meaningless. Crockett tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable, but her eyes locked onto his, like twin lasers cutting through smog. She let him finish his tantrum, didn't interrupt once. She didn't need to. He kept going. You act like I'm scared of you, please. You're a puppet. A race-baiting headline hunter. You people don't build, you tear down. And when you're done destroying me, you'll destroy this country. That's the plan, isn't it? You and your liberal cabal, tearing this place apart, one lie at a time. Gasps, murmurs. Even Fox News anchors shifted uncomfortably. That was it. He'd gone. Too far. Crockett stood, slowly, deliberately, not as a politician, but as a reckoning made flesh. The kind of silence that followed wasn't hesitation, it was reverence. She approached the edge of the debate stage, microphone gripped like a blade, eyes locked not on Trump but on the camera. On America. I wasn't going to say this, she began quietly, but you just gave me no choice. The room leaned in. She held up a worn document, a birth certificate. The crowd squinted. This, she said, is my father's death certificate. The silence cracked like ice. My father worked 40 years at a chemical plant. Died from lung disease. He had no lawsuits, no golden parachutes, no hush money, just the truth. And I watched that truth get buried, not just by sickness, but by a system you helped build. One where people like him die quietly while men like you get louder, richer, crueler. Crueler, Trump tried to interject. This has nothing to do with, but she raised a hand, and that hand shut him up. She continued, voice now unwavering. You want to call this a circus? No, Mr. Trump. This is an autopsy of every lie you ever told, at every family you've ever shattered, every woman you've ever silenced, every immigrant you caged, every black man your system jailed, every child who looked up and saw your face and felt fear instead of hope. Trump leaned forward, desperate. This is emotional manipulation. Crockett finally turned to him. No, this is memory. This is America speaking through me because you muted it for too long, and now it's done, whispering. Thunderdot, the audience gasped. Some wept. She stepped closer to Trump, holding the birth certificate in one hand and the death certificate in the other. You built your empire on fear. You fed off division. You made a nation believe you were its only shot at survival, while you leached it dry. And now you sit here angry, exposed, powerless, not because of me, but because the truth doesn't need permission to be loud. She turned to the moderator. May I read something? The moderator nodded, stunned. Crockett unfolded a single page. This, she said, is from the FBI's unsealed file just released this morning, time-stamped 7:42 a.m. Trump visibly froze. Crockett read. Slowly, subject Donald J. Trump is now under formal investigation for obstruction of justice, conspiracy to defraud the United States, and witness tampering related to sealed documents and classified materials. Air was gone. The oxygen was ripped from the room. Trump stood up fast, too fast, and nearly tripped over the edge of the podium. Lies. That hasn't been verified. She's making it up. But the moderator's earpiece buzzed. They nodded. It's confirmed, the moderator said, their voice hollow, breaking just now. This is real. Pandemonium. The crowd erupted. Phones went up. Journalists leapt from their seats. Cameramen scrambled for the perfect shot. Anchor on the broadcast could be heard whispering, "Oh my God, it's happening in real time." And Jasmine? She didn't flinch. She turned to Trump one last time. I told you. The truth doesn't knock. It breaks the damn door down. Boom. Applause roared like thunder through the building. Standing ovation. Viewers across the country stood in their living rooms. Airports froze. Lounges erupted. Hashtags were born in seconds. Trump staggered backward, pale mouth open, speechless. He didn't storm out. He collapsed into his chair like a man finally understanding what it felt like to fall. And Crockett. She walked back to her seat like nothing happened. Calm, whole, unshaken. But just as the moderator tried to speak again, another alert buzzed. Phones lit up. Screens flashed. News banners turned red. A producer shouted off camera, "Hey, we have something else. Something massive. Just broke." The moderator blinked, and that's when the real shock came next. Asterisk for a split second, silence. Cloaked the studio like a burial shroud. The final words Jasmine Crockett had just unleashed weren't merely debate points, they were death blows. Donald Trump sat frozen, the blood drained from his face, fingers twitching slightly as if trying to grasp something invisible slipping through them. The cameras caught everything. His son Barron's bewildered expression, the rapid blinking of Jeanine Pirro, and the stunned posture of the Fox host, who had not expected Crockett to come in with such clinical, devastating precision. America wasn't just watching a debate anymore. They were witnessing the unraveling of a legacy. "Live," Trump tried to speak. Tried. His mouth opened, but no words came. The prompter's red light glowed in front of him like a warning you've lost control. The audience, once packed with MAGA loyalists and Fox News faithful, began slowly turning in posture and tone. A woman near the front whispered, "Oh my God." Another older man leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, lips pursed not in defiance, but in stunned reconsideration. The man who once commanded roaring crowds now sat in a studio with nothing but echoing silence and a growing undeniable truth. He had been broken by facts, by conviction, by a woman they thought couldn't touch him, and then like a man grasping for oxygen underwater, Trump lashed out. "This is all garbage," he muttered hoarsely. "It's fake news. It's manipulation. She's twisting it. She's a liar, a race baiter." His voice cracked, turning shrill. His finger pointed at Jasmine Crockett like a weapon, but it shook. Not with authority, with fear. Fear of what she'd made visible. Fear of what the people might now see clearly. "She doesn't understand how the real world works," he shouted louder, trying to get ahead of the next blow. "She's never built anything. She's nothing." Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She simply let the air settle. Then, leaning forward into the mic, she delivered her last, devastating reply. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It cut like a scalpel. "I may not have inherited millions," she said, her gaze locked on Trump's hollow stare, "but I built something you've never had. Trust. Now, I've never paid off silence, never cheated the system, never betrayed a nation's hope to build my ego. You bought power, and you weaponized it against the very people you swore to serve. Your lies were so loud you forgot the truth was still whispering beneath it. And now, that whisper just became a roar." The room erupted, but it wasn't a cheer. It was the sound of release. A gasp, a thunderclap, chairs shuffling, cameras. Worry, anchors scrambling. Some clapped, others just stared. Jaws slack, hands over mouths. Trump looked around as if realizing perhaps for the first time that his empire wasn't being taken from him. It was crumbling from within. Barron Trump, barely 19, turned away from the stage. His eyes were not in rage, but in something heavier, disillusionment. Crockett had never meant to involve him directly. The truth had splashed beyond its target. Oh. The collateral damage was real, and Barron, for the first time, looked less like the heir to a dynasty and more like a witness at a funeral. His silence screamed louder than any words. Trump stood, slow and uneven, and without another sound walked off the set. No closing statement, no fight, just a hollow man in retreat. Fox News didn't cut to commercial. They were too stunned. Jeanine Pirro sat frozen, her pen still in, eyes darting across the room like someone waking from a fever dream. The camera lingered on Crockett, and she turned to it. "This was never about parties," she said. "It was about power. It was about truth. And for too long, that truth was buried beneath arrogance, wealth, and lies. But today it rose. The audience stood. Not everyone, but enough to feel it. A shift, a reckoning, beginning. And As the noise swelled and tears welled in the eyes of the young staffer who once whispered to Crockett, "Don't let him rattle you," Jasmine stepped forward, not as a politician, but as a woman who had taken on a machine and dismantled it. In real time, in the end, intelligence, truth, and integrity didn't just rise. They broke the myth that anyone is untouchable. So now we ask you, watching Was Justice Served? Tell us, what country and city are you watching from? If you believe in truth over tyranny, in facts over fear, then share this video, let the world. No, we're not afraid of power. We're just done being silent.